give me your opinion on the Colts. Are they true contenders? And also, give me your opinion on their quarterback, Carson Wentz. Is he now a top 15 quarterback once again?
Part of the question.
Has he revived his career?
It's got to be for me.
All right. For what, the Wentz question would be for you?
Yeah.
So and then I'll just talk about the Colts.
I'll talk about the Colts
a little
too,
bit
but
both.
Go for it, yeah.
I do think the Colts are contenders. I do think they're the second best team in the AFC. And I do think they are capable to go to the Super Bowl. The beast over in Kansas City does give me a stomachache in halting me from really stamping they're going to the Super Bowl. But you know what? I'm a KC hater.
You have the KC red on.
Ugh. You didn't have to do that to me. That being said, I absolutely hate Kansas City. As much as I want to be a little bit truthful, a little bit non-biased, thank you for giving me the push I needed. The Colts are going to the Super Bowl.
Woo.
I think in terms of what teams really need help with stopping right now, Indianapolis Colts are the best at, and that's running the football. I look at the Bills, I look at the Chargers. Chiefs are the only one, really, that have the personnel to really stop, quote-unquote, stop Jonathan Taylor. I look at New England, and I see what Jonathan Taylor did to him already. 170 yards, touchdown. I think defensively, they have the personnel to go up against anyone. And in a one-game matchup against any team, they've already shown they could beat anyone. Outside of Tennessee, who I do believe, if they matched up for a third time, I'm guaranteeing the Colts win. I don't think the Colts fear a team in the AFC right now. The Colts are playing arguably the best football in the NFL right now, outside of probably the Packers. And AFC, the Chiefs have rolled these last couple weeks, and we're finally starting to see Mahomes creep back to normal Mahomes status. But the Colts, again, like I said, can legitimately beat any team any given week. Secondary-wise, they have that personnel. Middle linebacker, Darius Leonard is one of the best middle linebackers in the game. DeForest Buckner was just called to the Pro Bowl, even though I do believe that Jeffrey Simmons probably should have taken his spot. However, DeForest Buckner is not a slouch.
They have the most Pro Bowl selections.
Yeah.
Kwity Paye was a solid pick for them as well. He's been very solid for them this season. I think the Colts have everything that it takes to go to the Super Bowl, and I think they will. Oh, I have to mention about Carson Wentz. I forget this is a little two-topic thing. I got a little carried away with my Colts take. That being said, Carson Wentz, top 15. That's easy. I think with what he's done this season, we're praising Rodgers, and I'm not saying he's Rodgers. Let me just get that out the way before I get ridiculed. We're seeing Rodgers with less attempts be efficient as could be with those few attempts. Now, Carson Wentz has even fewer attempts than Aaron Rodgers. Now, he ranks 10th in touchdowns, and he's only thrown 6 INTs. He's been extremely efficient, very careful with the football, and that's number one, what we're looking for. Carson Wentz has always been careful with the football, but now you're putting him behind not even the best pass blocking line. We've spoken about it. You've definitely opened my eyes to it. I think right now they rank 22nd in terms of win shares for pass blocking. Their pass blocking is not as great as their run blocking is. And even still, Carson Wentz has been very careful, very efficient with the football. The yards are not up there with the league's leader, but that's because they have the league leader in rushing in Jonathan Taylor. I think top 15 is very more than correct. He's borderline pushing the top 12, top 13. Top 10 is I can't say he's top 10. There's too much great talent in this league right now to say he's top 10. But I think top 15 is a lock for sure.
I'm not ready to go out and say they're going to make the Super Bowl. You have a hatred for Kansas City just like I have a hatred for New England. So I 100% understand why you want to go out and say, you know what, Casey's not going to do it this year. It's going to be another team. It's going to be, in this case, the Indianapolis Colts. They have a great chance. I think Kansas City is my favorites right now. Basic. But I would put Indy probably number 2. I'm in step for step with you in terms of I think there's a lot, especially the top of the AFC. There's a lot of things I'm questioning. You mentioned New England Patriots have really not been playing well over these last few weeks. We've talked a ton about the Buffalo Bills, how they're too Josh Allen centric. even though they have been able to run the ball a little bit better over the last few
weeks. They
really
really have.
The Chargers were my sleeper team, and they just lost to the Texans, given they were without a lot of top guys with Joey Bosa and Mike Williams and Eckler and so on. The Colts can make a run. For sure they can make a run. What does worry about me, just like we talk about the Bills being too Josh Allen-centric or the Colts too Jonathan Taylor-centric. They won last week with Jonathan Taylor struggling to a degree. He had his first run 45 yards or so, and then the next 20 so carries, he had, 50 yards, 60 yards?
Very mid. Finished with 108. A
lot of that was due to the offensive line. They were down 3-4 starters. This week, they're projected to get back both starting guards, which is going to be a huge, help to their offensive line. Ryan Kelly's also expected to be back, their starting center. So if the offensive line's healthy and you can run through Jonathan Taylor, that's fine. We saw the Cardinals really being the first team who could do anything in terms of stopping the run. But like I mentioned, that's with a backup offensive line altogether. So can the Colts go on a run and go to the Super Bowl? Yes, I'm not expecting that like Drew just predicted. Now for Carson Wentz. I've been labeled a bit of a Wentz hater, especially by Serge in the Discord. He was adding me on Christmas Day.
You are a Carson Wentz hater.
A little bit. But I think, to be fair, I think it's my, not hatred towards him, but my criticism to him is fair. When things are right, like we saw in Philadelphia the Super Bowl year, like we're seeing this year, when you have a top offensive line, I know the win rate hasn't been there, but when you have such a dominant run game, you're able to have a little bit less in terms of being able to be successful pass blocking. When you're able to have such a good play action game and the defense worrying more about the run than the pass, it takes a little bit away from me. Regardless, they're still not being as good as we've seen them in the past.
You say that, but outside of this season, when has Wentz had a dominant run game or a great one?
Well, he had a great offensive line in Philly.
He did have a great offensive line.
Might not have had a great run game, but great offensive line, which is
one of the better ones in NFL history,
yes,
low-key.
Which is the most important thing, probably. So in the right situation, like Carson Wentz is right now, yeah, he's a top 15 quarterback. You rattle off the stats, he's having a phenomenal season. If this offensive line stays healthy, Jonathan Taylor stays healthy, Michael Pittman, there's not a doubt in my mind he'll be a top 15 quarterback. It's when these offensive linemen go down, which he's had a great game against Arizona, so I'll give him that, but it's one game.
He won them the game.
He did.
Against one of the top teams in the NFL.
He did, 100%. Arizona has been regressing for sure, though, over this last month. They're not the same team that they were
in
September, October.
But yes, I guess.
So I just need to see in the playoffs from Carson Wentz. Can you do it in the playoffs if you're down a few guys? If this whole offensive line's healthy, if Jonathan Taylor's healthy, like I mentioned, okay, sure, Wentz is fine. I worry if something goes wrong in chaos, that's where I worry about Carson Wentz. Because where he stands now, especially with Frank Reich, someone who believes in him, he doesn't have someone on his back like a Nick Foles breathing down his neck or a Jalen Hurts.
Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah, exactly. So he has no one to worry about coming in and taking over his job. Let's not forget, he was terrible against New England. I know they killed him. He had 5 completions. He was terrible. He played bounce back, which I love to see because that's not something that I don't think of Carson Wentz as the most mentally tough guy, especially what I saw in Philly last year with Jalen Hurts, the whole situation there. So Carson Wentz is a top 15 quarterback right now, but once those pieces start to fall, especially in the playoffs when you're facing top competition week in and week out, that's when I have my questions.
Before you say anything, you said everything needs to be right.
Yep.
2019. Everything was not right. Team was actually kind of mid.
Okay, this was
He took them to the playoffs. He backpacked them. That year, Carson Wentz...
They won 7 games.
They won 9 games.
Oh, they won 9?
They won 9 games. Give me a second.
They made the playoffs one time winning 7, though.
No, they did, for sure. Carson Wentz that season, I remember vividly, they needed him to go on a run. 2019, he had 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
They needed him to beat Dallas. He beat Dallas.
Correct. But that being said, that defense was decimated. The O-line, we saw it slowly but surely start to show its age. And Carson Wentz this is arguably, his MVP season, he definitely got hurt, for sure.
I just looked it up. End of the 2019 season, PFF ranked the Eagles as the number 1 offensive line.
Oh, well, what am I thinking? I must be thinking 2020.
They didn't have any backs or receivers, though. That's really where it comes down to.
Yeah, if he has the offensive line, just like any other quarterback, if you have a phenomenal offensive line, you're going to be really good.
27 and 7, over 4,000 really yards.
It's really good.
But you got me with the offensive line.
So he didn't backpack them. That's what you're saying.
He had a great season, but it's when his offensive line deteriorates, which is fine. It's with a lot of quarterbacks outside of like the elite quarterbacks, which I don't see Wentz as a top 10 guy, like perennial every year that some other people see. Like his potential fully exceeded, like we saw the MVP run where he potentially could have won MVP if he didn't get injured. They win the Super Bowl.
I'm just trying to make sure because you say Wentz didn't backpack, even though he had a great offensive line. You knock him for that, but when I told you Lamar didn't backpack and he had a great offensive line, you shrugged it off.
Well, they had the number one offense in the league.
And the number one offensive line.
The number one offense, too. Did the Eagles have number one offense?
The receivers, they had no receivers.
I know that they had Hollywood, and that was it. And
Mark
Andrews. Sure.
Good?
Okay.
I'm just trying to make sure.
But they had Zach Ertz.
Let's find out.
Zach Ertz can't block.
Let's find out.
Okay, bro. I don't.
And Zach Ertz was showing.
They had the number
age.
one offensive line. Why do I care if he could block?
Bro, Zach Ertz couldn't because you need a tight end to.
All right,
line?
Zach Ertz was amazing. He had 916, 6 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert had 607, 5 touchdowns. But their wide receivers.
They've always had good tight ends.
Nelson Aguilar, 363, 3 touchdowns. Alshon Jeffrey, 490, 4 touchdowns. Somehow, Carson Wentz ended with 4,000 passing yards.
It's impressive.
Lamar Jackson also had great tight ends, too.
This line was crazy.
And Doyle is a great blocking tight end.
Jack Doyle, Hayden Hurst, they had three really good guys.
I'm 100% thinking 2020 because they had Jason Peters, they had Jason Kelsey, they had
got
Brandon
up
Brooks,
a ton,
and Lane Johnson.
That's why I wanted Hurts to start. I remember saying that in November because he's a mobile quarterback who the offensive line.
So let me ask you this question: is Carson Wentz versus Dak Prescott a conversation again?
No,
I'm taking Dak. I'm not thinking much of it. Even though it is a good debate, I shouldn't say anything of it.
He only has Pittman. He really only has Pittman. It's a conversation to be had.
Yeah, that's fair.
I personally, who as a Dak supporter, would not like to have. I need to acknowledge that Carson Wentz definitely could get.
I trust Dak more when things go bad.
I agree with you. But let me ask you this though: before 2019, before 2020, before Carson Wentz had his awful season in 2020 last year, who are you picking between Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott?
So we're going back to the start of 2019?
2019.
2019.
So when they were
2019.
Rookies. So
this is coming off Carson Wentz's MVP season.
All right, if you don't count Carson Wentz's 2020 season,
okay,
who do you think was better between Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott? Who were you picking at that time?
Yo, that's so tough.
But that's why are we throwing out Wentz's worst year?
Because he's obviously bounced back from it, and he's shown
he has.
It's because Wentz has bounced back from it and shown that he's that quarterback.
And that Eagles team was mid last season, man.
It was
mid's kind.
Yeah, but Hurts came in and played decent.
He played okay. He had one great game. Was it against Dallas?
Packers.
For Packers
or Saints?
Because for the record, I think Dak.
We just threw out 3 names.
For the record, I think Dak Prescott is better, but. This is the first time in Carson Wentz's career where he has a dominant running game with Jonathan Taylor. Dak Prescott has had that his entire career with Ezekiel Elliott in that offensive line.
That's why.
And Carson Wentz has never had the receivers Dak Prescott has had with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, even Cedric Wilson has been good. Dalton Schultz has been a good tight end. He's never had that. So Carson Wentz is showing that when he has a similar cast to Dak, he's a very similar quarterback.
I don't know if Wentz has ever had a similar supporting cast attack.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because Dak has always had the better supporting cast. 100%, that's why I think now that Carson, because 2020 Carson Wentz was awful, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's revived his reputation this season. He's playing really well, and I think this year Dak still has a better supporting cast than Wentz. So is it a conversation again? And is Carson Wentz, is he topping Dak?
No, I don't. It's also hard because we haven't seen, I said, I trust Dak more in chaos, but we just really haven't seen Dak in chaos because he's always had a really good offensive line.
We've seen Dak in chaos once before Amari Cooper got traded there and they had no receivers.
Yeah.
We've seen him in that. And
we saw him in chaos 2020 when they had no defense and he had to absolutely back.
Played offensively, 4 games.
I understand.
Offensively, we're talking about. Before,
he was amazing, yeah.
No, offensively in chaos, not defense.
Yeah, facts.
The one year I can remember where Dak Prescott didn't have an ideal situation was in 2019 before they traded for Amari Cooper, and he wasn't a good quarterback. It wasn't until Amari Cooper was there where his numbers went up.
They needed weapons. They had nothing. And he wasn't.
And that's what Carson Wentz had in 2019 with the Eagles.
20.
This is
sure?
Amari got traded in 2018.
Okay, so 2018, my bad.
It was October 22nd, so that sounds like week 5, 6-ish.
I understand what you're saying because when Amari came in, the chemistry was immediate and the Dallas offense was completely changed.
Yeah, he wasn't great before Amari that year at least.
Mm-hmm.
then once they got Amari, he really started taking off. But even still, I would still take Dak. I know he's been like
It's a conversation.
Conversation.
We've seen Carson Wentz with no wide receivers in 2019 and 2018 in Philly, and he was a very efficient quarterback.
He was.
2018 was the only year we saw 2018 was the only real year we saw Dak Prescott in chaos, at least offensively, with not having weapons. Before Amari Cooper was traded to Dallas, Dak Prescott averaged 202 yards per game, 6.8 yards per attempt, completed only 61% of his passes, had 8 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and had an 87 passer rating. Amari comes in, he's now passing for 274 yards per game, 7.7 yards per attempt, has a completion percentage of 71%, has 14 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and a 103 passer rating.
Is this also the year Zeke gets suspended? That he got suspended for 6 games.
Nope, not this.
Wasn't 2018?
Nope, that was 2017. I will also say this.
I think that was
it was 2017.
So even though I do think Dak Prescott is better, I would just rather take his intangibles and leadership over Carson Wentz.
100%.
I do think it's a debate between Wentz and Dak again. Even though Dak wins, I think Wentz, he's creeping up again.
I just think if Dak was on the Colts rather than Wentz, I have no doubt. I'm like, yeah, they're contenders for sure. Wentz, I struggle a little bit with him.
I'm in. I think that I'd probably go Carson
over Dak.
I think so. I think that given the fact that he's had minimal to work with, mostly throughout his entirety of his career outside of the offensive line, in terms of weapons, Dak has always had better weapons than Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz somehow manages to still win games outside of last season. He immediately goes to a new scenery, new team, and he's back to winning football games, back to looking like his old self and being efficient doing so.
And not to mention in 2019, when Wentz faced Dak for the division title, Wentz having no receivers, Dak having that stacked offense, the Cowboys lost, and Dak had a bad game. He was hurt. I think he had a hurt shoulder that game, but Carson Wentz prevailed in that game. And that year, by far, Wentz had worse weapons than Dak.
Well, both of these teams are going to be making the playoffs, so we'll see which team goes further.
What if we have a Colts and Cowboys Super Bowl?
Oof,
that'd be crazy.
Tough. Yeah, that'd be hard for me to root for because I love JT, but I'm going with Dak over Wentz, so I got to root for Dak. I think Dallas had a statement game against Washington this past week, a divisional game. You know, a lot of talk about. We saw about the bet between the defense and Dak, who's going to have more touchdowns. I think Dak took that a little bit personally. He went out, had his best game maybe of his career, honestly. He had, 300 yards in the first half, 3 touchdowns. Like, he was out of his mind good. I think that was a statement win. I think this is not a team I want to play in the playoffs.
Dak's completion percentage is still really high, 68.7.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Dak's a beast, bro.
No, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's a beast.
He's amazing.
I can't take Wentz over him. No way.
I mean, give him Amari Cooper. Give him CeeDee Lamb. Give him
Michael Gallup.
Schultz.
I told y'all Cedric Wilson was nice.
Well, Gallup kind of
was he at 500 yards this year?
Yeah, but like when he's had to step
500 yards for
the
number
fourth
4
receiver.
Exactly. I'll be honest. Let's be honest. He's the fifth. He's the 5th option. If we're counting Ezekiel, Tony Pollard, he's 7th. Because Dalton Schultz has been huge for them this season.
Bring him to the Jets, man.
Cedric.
The reason they're not going to re-sign Gallup is because they have Wilson, bro.
Yeah, that's fine.
He has 448 yards this year.
He stepped in nice when Gallup was out for sure.
He had 104 yards against the Raiders on 7 receptions.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that game like the week before.
He had 84 yards against Minnesota, a touchdown.
Dak is having a fire season.
Yeah. He went on a little the whole offense really went on a bit of a slump
these last couple games, but that bounce back. This game against the football team. This might be the game that we look at and say this is the one that turned everything.
I don't
want
to play Dallas if I'm going to the playoffs right now. They have the most opportunistic defense in the league. They have potential defensive player of the year, obviously defensive rookie of the year. Yeah. Trayvon Diggs is a ball hawk. And you have this offense that if it's coming alive now, man, this is a tough team to play.
Dan Quinn is completely changed around.
Yeah, man, that conversation is really tough.
You saw he turned down the Jaguars head coaching spot.
They wanted to interview him. He turned it down to interview these next 2 weeks. He said that he's dedicating his time to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's good because I feel like he's in a perfect spot in Dallas.
You don't think he'd be a head coach again? Or should
I think he could be, and if he wants to, he will be.
Dallas has to throw him a bag to stay.